Holy smokes, there are a lot of people watching. I'm ready to go if you are. Are you there, Michael? Hi. Oh, no, you didn't. Uh, you're muted, Michael.
I'm here for the cosplay. I heard there was cosplay happening today.
Why didn't I do that? Damn. That's a brilliant. Wow.
Is that right? Am I in the right place?
You're in the right place, sir. I can do you need an autograph or a photo or something? What can I do for you?
That would be lovely. I would love that.
This is so exciting. We are people already watching us? Or yes, are we live?
I really hope so. I hope I am, because that was my best stuff. I've done my best stuff already.
Really shocking, and an uncanny resemblance, I might add.
I think this is the look that you should cultivate for your, what is it, your 53rd season coming up?
Yes, yep, we're rolling right into number 53.
Just very old men and women wandering around doing stuff. Is that basically what the show? I've not seen the show. I'm sorry.
That is exactly what the show is.
That kind of thing.
It actually started with a group of young men, and now we all have gray in our beards. I actually just shaved yesterday, and I have the same patterning of silver in my facial hair growth as you do, which I think is very. Oh, thank you.
You've very wisely groomed yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying to stave off adulthood for as long as possible.
This is where I have to come clean about where the money from the campaign is really going. It's going for a monumental grooming session that I have to have now. I couldn't say that. I couldn't be honest about it. So I came up with this homelessness story, but actually it takes a lot of people, a lot of heavy machinery to do it.
Hedge clippers, among other things. Yeah.
Yes. The people who do Mount Rushmore, also a lot of scaffolding has to be put up.
Yep. And it's some of the same technology that was used when they built Stonehenge, right? Which we
indeed. And I would love to let everybody know. Hot news from Stonehenge, everybody. Yes, I was saying to Misha that my idea of how Americans view Britain is that all that happens every day on the news is Stonehenge news. And that is actually weirdly what's happening at the moment.
It has been happening, yeah.
There is Stonehenge news happening.
I didn't tell you this, but one of the one of the best films that has come out of American television cinema in the last 15 years is a movie called Stonehenge Apocalypse, which
I've heard of this.
I starred in, and I saved the world, and I was snubbed at the Oscars for that. But it shows just how pivotal Stonehenge can be. Stonehenge was actually the key that when you turn it, it starts terraforming, and the entire world turns into lava.
I had suspected that was what was going on.
I ended up saving the world by detonating a nuclear bomb on Stonehenge.
Are you aware that here in Britain, people reconstruct scenes from that film now at Stonehenge every year? It's a sort of form of the summer solstice. People celebrate the summer solstice by acting out scenes. And then they do a lot of Morris dancing.
It's sort of modern pagan ritual that takes place. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like the sort of Civil War reenactments, but it's Stonehenge apocalypse.
I wasn't aware, but I'm not surprised.
They would love to see you, Misha.
Yeah,
they would love to see you.
Yeah, as soon as the pandemic ends.
Have you been to Britain much?
I have. I have been there pretty much every year for the last decade or so.
All right.
And have been to Stonehenge itself. As
you have?
Yes, I have.
Ladies and gentlemen, more Stonehenge news.
I actually was going to go a couple times this year, and I'm sad not to be there now. And when is the next time that you're coming back to the U.S.? You have plans?
Well, the plan is the series I do, Prodigal Son. The second season of that is due to start as soon as it can, really. I mean, originally it would have been July, but obviously that got put off when everything went haywire. And then the plan was sort of to try, the plan still is to try, and they're hoping it'll happen sort of September, October, I think, but it'll depend. You know, there's a lot of stuff that has to be put in place first, I guess, to be able to make sure that it can happen safely. The writers are writing it, but yeah, we'll have to sort of wait and see. So at the moment, we think we'll be coming back over some end of September, beginning of October, but we'll sort of have to wait and see, really.
I think we're somewhere in a similar pocket for our show. We were finishing our final season. We were 1.5 episodes from the end after 15 years, and they were like, I think we're gonna have to pull the plug. And everyone was, I think the feeling on set was, if a few of us have to die to finish this, it's worth it. Like, let's just get it over with. We can't wait. But
and that is the kind of commitment that has led to Supernatural doing 53 seasons, because that comes across, that comes through.
Yes, yeah. The degree to which we don't care about one another in the cast and crew. So yeah, but we're gonna, I think, unless something goes even more off the rails in the next few weeks, it'll be soon. Yeah.
So what, you'll come back and you'll do the last couple of episodes, or are you doing a whole other season?
No. Come back and do 1.5 episodes, and then
that's it. Because we were weirdly, we would have been in the same position with the first season of Prodigal Son, in that it wouldn't have had a finale, like, because production got shut down before they'd finished filming the season. But because I was supposed to come back to Britain to do something else, we had arranged it so that we jumped ahead a few episodes, shot the finale, and then they were going to go back and film the other episodes whilst I was gone, just so that I could get out a bit earlier. So we'd already shot the finale, and then literally a few days later, production shut down. But they had the finale in the can already. So then they just sort of had to do a bit of judicious editing and a few sort of bridging scenes, and they were able to do the finale. So we were very fortunate. Well, they were very fortunate because of me, and I don't think they've thanked me enough for that yet.
Well, this is sort of a public plea for you to get them to acknowledge.
I think this is a good forum for them to now send in some kind of A, thanks, and B, apology.
And possibly remuneration of some sort. I mean, you should be compensated for your efforts.
Very possibly remuneration, yes. Is it? And now someone told me the other day, I can't believe this is true, that there are some similarities between Good Omens and Supernatural. Is that?
That sounds weird. I mean,
that's just that's fake news. Fake news.
So for people other than Michael and I who are watching this, you might not realize this, but we're both actors, and we are both on shows that have this sort of sci-fi bent and fantasy, and we haven't really watched one another's shows, but we hear from other people that there are some overlaps. For example, I was told that Eric Kripke, who created Supernatural, was very much inspired by the book Good Omens, and so a lot.
But you don't have angels and demons in your show, do you?
Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and they're all derivative of the angels and demons in your show, as far as I understand. I play an angel who dresses a lot like you dress in your daily attire. This is your Is this your pandemic house coat?
This is my relaxing in the kitchen house coat. Yes.
Yeah.
This is what I like to just wander around in. I've got literally nothing on below the screen here. I just like to wander around like this. It's quite a long smock, is what it is, and a very long tie.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people in the States like to do, is just walk around with no pants on and a trench coat. It's a very popular motif here as well. Yeah.
But and weirdly, that's sort of similar to what you wear in your show.
Yep. I have a one of my trench coats here. I'm gonna just grab it because right as the pandemic was setting in, this is an actual coat from set. As we were shutting down production, a little part of my brain thought, it's possible that we'll never come back finish
Yes,
this
well,
show.
yes, I suppose,
And if
yeah.
that happens, I want to make sure to steal some of my wardrobe before it's too late. So I
Yes.
took this, and I hope nobody from Warner Brothers is watching this right now, but I took this and several other little props
Yeah.
and other mementos from set. And also my castmate Jared Padalecki's wallet, a few other
Right.
things that just would be, nice keepsakes. It's too
Yeah.
hot here for me to actually wear this, but I did
Even
want
though
to
we,
model it.
even though we finished Good Omens well before the pandemic started, that was actually my excuse for why I took David Tennant home at the end of filming on it. People questioned it. People got weird about it. It all got a bit strange.
Well,
But it was because I wasn't sure if we were going to do any more.
that totally makes sense. Was that the thumping I heard in your closet earlier?
What? There was something? Get more formaldehyde, Anna. That's a crossover between the two shows that I do. Serial killer come. Now, I did notice people when it was, announced that we were doing this, that people, obviously people talked about the angels element, but other people said it could go one of two ways here. It could go very angelic, or it could go very, very sort of dark as well. Now, why would they think that about you, Misha?
That's a really good prompt. I mean, is it me or is it my character they're talking about? I think people often conflate the two. My character is very socially awkward and isn't terribly good with people. And so
Right.
he and I share that in common, but he also tends to try to always do the right thing and do what's best for humanity and stuff like that. And that's not my bag. So people often think that I'm, potentially a good or magnanimous person. Yeah. And that's because they watch the show and they're not paying attention to me in the real world.
Right.
I would say, though, there is another similarity that I can point to between us and our characters, which is that we have actually both done some work in the charity realm, to take a slightly different tack on this conversation.
Okay.
And we are teaming up together to sell these shirts, one of which I'm modeling right now.
Yes.
To raise money for transatlantic homeless initiatives.
I would like to offer up Swedish actress model Anna Lundberg here, who is in the other T-shirt.
Hi, Anna.
There are two different T-shirts.
Hi, you modeled it much better.
Yeah, that's why I'm not wearing it.
I should have brought a model.
And on the back, we have the wing motif.
God, that's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Beautifully done. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question about that? And I don't know the answer. How did you become first involved in working for homeless, or working to ameliorate homelessness?
Yeah, I suppose initially I got involved with an organization called Street Football Wales, and that's a sort of grassroots organization, of which there are many around the world, who organize football for our American cousins, soccer games and leagues and tournaments.
The contempt is dripping off you as you say that word.
Not at all. For people who have or are experiencing homelessness or some form of social exclusion. And it's a way of being able to give people an opportunity just to kind of let go of the worries they've got that are going on in life, to not have any stigma or judgment, to be able to meet other people, and build up a sort of network of friends and support, get a bit of self-confidence, a bit of, healthy stuff going on, and be able to get services to people that might not, you'd be able to get to otherwise. So people come for the soccer, and they organize a tournament once a month or something like that, where everyone can take part. And so I got involved with that, first of all, because I used to play a lot of soccer when I was younger. That was going to be, before I became an actor, I wanted to be a professional soccer player. And this is not a fantasy. I was quite good at one point. I hit my peak at the age of 12, and then I was very downhill after that. Thank God acting came along to pick up the pieces. But so I got involved with Street Football Wales, and then through them, I discovered that every year there is a thing called the Homeless World Cup. So like the World Cup soccer tournament, it's hosted in a different country, different city each year. And there's usually something around 500 players who come from all over the world and take part in this tournament. And so I went to one in Oslo in Norway a few years ago with the Welsh teams, because men's and women's teams. And I saw it happening there in Oslo, and I was just kind of blown away by how life-changing it was potentially for people. I mean, I was sitting in the little stand talking to one of the players from the Welsh women's team, and she was just sort of telling me her experience, how she'd, you know, come out of prison. She was struggling with drug issues, alcohol issues. She hadn't seen her kids for God knows how long. And she was really trying to get her life on track. And, you know, I was sitting there kind of blown away by what she was telling me. And then she said, "Oh, hang on, I've just got to go and play." And she went down onto the five-a-side pitch, and I watched her score the first goal she had ever scored in her life. She'd never scored a goal before. And I watched her score it, and she had the Welsh football top on, the football. She had the badge of her country. And this was a woman who had been so excluded and marginalized and gone through so much stuff, you know. And there she was representing her country and scoring a goal. And her reaction to it was, I'll never forget it. She just sort of spun and spun on the spot. And then suddenly she was like back in the game again. And I was so moved by that. And I saw how that affected her and how that changed her life afterwards as well. Going through the whole experience of traveling to a World Cup, people traveling abroad for the first time often, you know, meeting other people from other countries who'd gone through similar experiences, and just possibilities opening up. And I saw how her life was changed in the time since then, you know. And I thought, right, I want to be a part of bringing this to my country, to Wales. And so we put a bid together. We got the bid. We put it all together, and it happened this time last year. And this extraordinary tournament happened. And it was potentially life-changing for everyone who took part. And it was life-changing for me as well, to be honest. And I know a lot of the people who are watching this, who are part of the Good Omens fandom, Good Omens came out just around the time of the Homeless World Cup tournament. And I know a lot of people kind of were sort of following it. And it was then that people started telling me about you and about the work that you were doing. And, you know, oh, and you both play angels and you should team up. And, you know, Misha does all this amazing stuff. And so it was funny that it was around that time the two things sort of came together. But the Homeless World Cup tournament was just the kind of platform in a way that I was hoping to use in order to then set things up to be able to work around the issues of homelessness in Wales. And that was a great kind of a platform for that, really, to bring people together, to give a different way of looking at things, and to start new collaborations, and for me to learn a bit more about it, really. So ever since that tournament, we've been trying to find ways to work on these issues and to collaborate with the people who already are working on them. Mm-hmm. And that's what led to me getting involved with this, really.
Isn't it such a lovely and an unexpected outcome from being on a show that has a fandom, that you can help galvanize that goodwill from those communities, and really and have a positive impact, not only on the outside world, you know, like on those that are struggling with homelessness or have, you know, other needs, but also, like you said, the people that get involved in these projects from the other end, from the giving end, end up being transformed by the process. This is my sort of charity fandom origin story is a little bit different from yours, but a little bit similar too, in that there was like this big initial event. The initial event was building this was about a decade ago, and then we were still using the term orphanage. Now that is no longer in vogue, and we're saying it's a children's center. But at the time, it was in Haiti, and there had been an earthquake, and I happened to have contact with a woman who was trying to take care of a large group of children who had lost their parents or who were essentially parentless, and and so we were like, let's band the supernatural fandom together and figure out a way to build an orphanage. And we went I went down there with about 30 fans the first year and started, digging for the foundation of this structure. And we spent a week down there, and each person that came on the trip raised a certain amount of money, and fans virtually from all over the world donated money to, build this initial project. Um, but the thing that was really fascinating to me was that all of these people, myself included, went on the trip with the intention of helping those in need. And I would say that there was a totally balanced impact on the other side of all of the people traveling there were transformed by the process, myself included. So many of the people that went down with me on that first trip ended up going back year after year, sometimes on their own, going back down and spending, months there working or working on other projects elsewhere in the world. Some of the people that went on that first trip had never been out of their home state in the U.S. Or out of their, out of their native country, and just seeing how different the world is and how different other people's lives can be, and beginning to develop that empathetic understanding of people in a completely different socioeconomic bracket is on its face transformative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think really, really valuable. We have a homeless drop-in center right down the road, 3-4 blocks from my house, and it's on the same side of the street. It's on our street, and when I walk down to get to the water with my kids, I always make a point of walking right by the drop, not crossing the street, which I think probably would have been my first instinct. There's a lot of homeless people crowding the sidewalk, tarps and bicycles and shopping carts, and so we walk right through those people and we talk to them. And my kids have started to see that, that just because you're homeless or you're, going through a time of difficulty in your life doesn't mean you're not a fellow human being who has all of the same emotional composition that we do. Yeah, I could talk.
Yeah.
I'm not
That
going.
was one of the very powerful things about the Homeless World Cup tournament, of course, was that the people who had been or were still experiencing homelessness were the players. They weren't there as homeless people. They were there as football players representing their country, the men and the women. And so all the people who came down to watch the tournament, and there was live music as well, and family activities, and there were podcasts and comedy and lectures and all kinds of things going on at the site in order to bring as many people down. And everyone who came down, they related to the people who were playing as football players, not as homeless people, and that made an incredible difference to the players themselves, who said, one guy came up to me and said, someone just came up to me and asked for my autograph. And he said, I was sleeping in the street a few days ago, and someone just came up to me for my autograph. That sense of, suddenly no judgment and no stigma, and that kind of changed the way people related to them, and that makes a massive difference. That kind of thing, that idea that somehow this is something that happens to other people, that it's others, and whether that creates pity or scorn, it's still a sense of what's happening to others, as opposed to this can happen to anybody. You listen, every single person has a story to tell about how they got to where they got to, and people come in and out of that situation. It's not just like there are this group of people who are the homeless.
Right.
It's people go through vulnerabilities and needs and crises in all kinds of different ways, and come in and out of it. And I think any society, it says the most about a society how we treat people ourselves when we're at our most needing. And that's what says the most about who we are as a community at any given time. That's what I'm so proud about with the Good Omens fandom that has grown up, is that I see when I engage with the fans and I have a look at what's going on, it's all people trying to help each other, trying to support each other when they're going through difficulties, and knowing that by doing that, people will be there for them when they go through their time. And everyone does go through their time. And I find that incredibly moving, I'm sure that's the same with the supernatural fandom. I've already seen that happening just through, seeing what's going on through this.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm most happy to be. One of the reasons I'm most happy to be part of the supernatural fandom is that there's feels like a culture of kindness that is developed within it, where people really are watching out for one another and treating one another. We have this, slogan, hashtag, whatever, the SPN family, supernatural family. But it actually does feel like it has this extended family network vibe. And that's very cool. And much better to have that be your, you know, culture than one of exclusion or treating, you know, outsiders as others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you were saying about how it becomes life-changing for the people who are, you know, who start off by going, I want to help someone else. And actually what ends up happening is you realize how much you're being helped by having the opportunity to be of service and that kind of thing. I've seen so many people in the Good Omens fandom saying that already, you know, that people are already feeling their lives being changed by trying to help other people. And there are things that have started up, like there's a thing called the White Curl Project, which is based on what used to be the one white curl in my hair. It's now not. Unfortunately, they have lots of friends now. But the White Curl Project that's set up to raise funds for Welsh charities, and these are people in America, you know, all over the place. It's not people in Wales necessarily. There was Sheen Con 2020 that got set up because of the pandemics, bringing an end to Wales Comic Con, which I was going to go to. And so there are all these things getting set up that it makes me so happy seeing people kind of finding a sense of purpose and a sense of wanting to help, and them themselves finding that is changing their lives in all kinds of ways. It's so amazing to see that happening, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it is. It's funny because I think on the surface you can look at something like this and say, oh, it's just a silly little TV show. But if it has this this coalescing force, and it can inspire people to see themselves as a part of a community that does good in the world, then it's so valuable. And storytelling is valuable, of course.
Yeah.
But it's really lucky to be part of something that has an offshoot. Can I ask you one more question? What are you, so we're sort of joining forces, and I am going to take a portion of the funds that we're raising and put it toward Lydia Place, which is in the town that I live here. It's an organization that helps fight homelessness, family homelessness, which is, you know, I live in a town of 80,000 people, and it's amazing. But there are many dozens of families with school-age children who are homeless in this town. And for some reason, we can't, as a community, figure out how to even solve the problem of child homelessness. So this organization is working toward that and doing some incredible work in this community. And I've been working with them for several years now. But what are we funding in Wales? T-shirts.
So, I mean, obviously things have changed massively in the last 4 or 5 months. And one of the extraordinary things that has happened is that there was a real reluctance to properly engage and confront the challenge of rough sleeping in Britain generally, as well as in Wales. And because of the pandemic, and there was a real galvanizing of forces to get people off the streets, to get people who are rough sleeping into accommodation. And so far, 800 people, apparently the official figures are that 800 people who were rough sleepers within Wales were given accommodation. And are still in that accommodation at the moment. So the thing that everyone had always talked about wanting to try and see happen, and was finding so difficult to do, happened because of the pandemic. So that has created an opportunity, because now obviously there's an approach towards dealing with homelessness, which is known as the housing first approach. In the past, people thought that the best way to get people into permanent accommodation was to make sure that they had already dealt with a lot of their issues. So if people had issues around alcohol or drug dependency, that they had to kind of somehow show that they could deal with that, and then they would be given permanent accommodation, an opportunity to have it. And the housing first approach is you get people into accommodation, and then you give them wraparound support with services to help them stay there and to deal with it. So you get them in somewhere first before you ask them to kind of deal with their issues. And in a way, the pandemic has sort of forced everyone to take that approach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just get people into safety, get them off the streets, and then we'll deal with everything afterwards. So that's created a kind of an opportunity in a way, and it's created a completely different way of approaching how you deal with this. I mean, what the capital city in Wales is Cardiff, and the local council there, the Cardiff City Council, have been amazing. They've been brilliant. And there's been a collaboration that's been working much better than it's ever worked before with other service providers in the sector, which is really encouraging. And the Welsh government is making money available for local authorities to be innovative around their approach, to make sure that now that people are off the streets, how do we keep them off the streets, keep them in permanent accommodation, give them the support they need? Because of course the other challenge is we've got the people who are already homeless or dealing with homelessness, but coming down the line because of the potential recession that's going to happen, the unemployment, the end to the holidays from, loan repayments, evictions, all that kind of stuff. Once that all crashes back in, we may see a lot more people becoming homeless. So that's, a challenge. So the landscape has sort of completely changed. So what I was going to do with any money that was, raised on my own money, has sort of changed really over the last period of time. And so what I've decided to do is I'm going to set up a specific fund that any money that comes from this campaign and any other money I'm able to put into it, a specific Wales fund for supporting the new approaches towards dealing with the issues because of the pandemic. And I want it to be as responsive and as quick to be able to respond to what's going on as possible. So I'm going to set up a specific fund and 100% of the money that I get through this campaign will go into that fund to, as I say, support the organizations that are out there at the moment, to work in collaboration with local authorities, and to try and make as much as I can out of that money. I'm going to try and get match funding from other people, because I've found, and I'm sure you found this as well, that if you're able to say, I've got X amount of money, will you put the same amount of money in? People are much more likely to do that, and it makes your money go a lot further. So that's what I'm hoping to do with this money, is to try and find match funding for it, and to make it go a lot further then as well.
Yeah, I did a campaign a couple of years ago for Lydia Place, similar thing, and I think I ended up raising $125,000 or something that they then leveraged into $250,000, and with a matching, they set up the matching program, so it was. But yeah, it's a very effective way to actually double your money.
Yeah. And it gives people
it is going to
come on board as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a scary moment to be working on something like this, because it is going to get so much worse, and yet the resources are going to get more scarce. This is my prediction anyway. I think that, I think the U.S. economy and the world economy seems to be sort of floating on government stimulus and a strange optimism, and yet this is not anywhere near over. People are going to be out of work for a long time, and like you mentioned, the eviction moratoriums and whatnot, those are going to be lifted, and eventually people are going to have not been paying their rent for 6 months, and they're going to be out on the street. And I think it's going to be a really hard time when everybody is going to need to roll up their sleeves and do everything that they can to support those who are in the most vulnerable situations. So I think having that fund set aside and being able to be dynamic and responsive with how you allocate it is going to be really useful, because the landscape is changing constantly. I
mean, I know through the year, it's pretty much a year now of the Good Omens fandom being sort of in existence. I know that there's a lot of young people in the LGBTQ community who are part of the Good Omens fandom, and I've seen people talking about their experiences of family relationship breakdowns, and it's people who are LGBTQ plus are far more likely to become homeless than other people because of that, and the tensions that can happen. I can only imagine that through the lockdown and quarantine, any family tensions that were there before can be exacerbated. you know, problems around domestic abuse. You know, home is not the safest place for a lot of people. And homelessness, there's going to be a lot of pressure on homelessness coming out of this due to what's, you know, happened for some people in their homes during this period of time, as well as the you know, unemployment and deaths. You know, I mean, you speak to so many people who find themselves on the streets, and the story you'll often hear is because someone died, you know, a mother died, a partner died, and they couldn't cope with the you know, what happened, and find themselves, you know, in those circumstances. So it is scary, the prospect of what's coming up. And also, I suppose, you know, after the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, the bailouts that happened, the money that was spent to keep us going, certainly in Britain, the communities that ended up paying for that ultimately were the ones who were already the poorest. They were already the ones who had, you know, the socioeconomic challenges. We've had, you know, over, you know, 12 years now of what was called austerity politics, and that's been really tough for a lot of communities. Yeah. And there's a real fear that the money that is being plowed into helping us get through this period of time, which is fantastic, but the fear is who's going to ultimately pay for that? How is it going to get paid for?
Right. Social services will be cut, and the elderly will suffer, and we have a problem here now, which is that our, I guess I can say this, evil president is making it so that homeless shelters cannot provide services to trans homeless people, and they even have sent. The White House has sent out to shelters that receive federal funding. They've sent out guidelines for how to identify trans people to exclude them from services. I mean, it's literally as mustache twirling evil as you can get.
It's criminal. It's human rights criminality. You can't do that. No. So this is human rights stuff. Like, you just can't do that. It should be held to account. This sort of stuff should be absolutely held to account when the time comes, and people should have to pay for this stuff. Yeah. Because it is just the breaking down of basic human rights. Yeah. And civil rights. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
But on a positive note.
Yes, please pull us out of this emotional tailspin.
On a positive note, I mean, a major transformation happened in this country after the Second World War. The experiences of people who went through such hardship, such trauma, such terrifying circumstances during the Second World War created a situation where there was an empathy and an understanding of other people's lives that happened in this country across class, across racial divides, across all kinds of divides. That meant that after the Second World War, there was a kind of a new social contract that started. And out of that came the birth of our welfare services, our NHS, a sort of a coming together to help the whole community, so that it didn't depend on how much money you earned. You still got, treated as you should get treated, with dignity and care. And that kind of new social contract was born out of great hardship and great difficulty. And there is the possibility that coming out of this period of time, my hope anyway, is that there is an understanding of what, the people who have got us through this, certainly in Britain, so aware of, health workers, care workers, teachers, police, the people who pick up the bins every week, people in the supermarkets who were there all the way through this, serving food, and the lorry drivers, everybody who we now call key workers in Britain. It's become clear who this country relies on to get through this difficulty, and I think that has opened a lot of people's eyes to what really matters, in a similar way maybe to what happened during the Second World War. And maybe there is the possibility for a kind of renewal of that social contract, and a sense of being able to create a fairer, more equitable society that that doesn't sort of discriminate in the same ways as it has done again. I think there's been a kind of a lapse in the spirit of what that social contract was after the Second World War. And maybe if people step up in the way that I see people doing in the supernatural fandom and the Good Omens fandom. And exactly like you said, Misha, it may be about a TV show and whatever, but what it's creating, the communities and what those people are doing, is the beginnings of a new social contract, a new way of living together. If you model it, if you see it, you can be it. Yeah. And it's happening, and I'm inspired by it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if the rest of I'm just looking at American society, if the rest of American society were to operate with the same sort of social guidelines,
yeah,
the same sort of social contract that I see the supernatural fans relating to one another with, I think we would have a quite lovely country here.
Yeah.
With a lot less hatred and divisiveness.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. I mean, my friends have called me a pathological optimist, and I am always looking for the silver lining, and I'm always reaching for the hopeful thing. But there are also a lot of, bleak indicators right now during the pandemic. The economic disparity has only increased. The rich have gotten richer, the poor have gotten poorer, but there are things that are emerging, like a lot of people. I mean, this isn't a good thing, but it might be opening people's eyes to empathy more. 30 million Americans have lost their jobs, and they've relied on government assistance to help pull them through this period of unemployment. And that is, I think, increasing everyone's awareness that we need to take care of one another in times of need.
Yeah, and it makes it much harder to look down on people who have had that experience in the past. If you're now finding yourself having that experience, or knowing someone who's having that experience, it changes the way, it does open up the possibility for a new kind of empathy, I think, don't you?
Yeah. And there must be something in the air right now, because the Black Lives Matter movement had been simmering for decades here, and it has come to a boil during the pandemic. People seem to be developing a consciousness about injustice and inequity, and I think maybe I'm hopeful that I think we all have to be vigilant and keep working at it.
Yeah.
Because
that's the thing, isn't it? Because it doesn't just happen on its own.
Yeah.
People have to step up, and again, that's why I'm so inspired by seeing people in the supernatural fandom and the Good Omens fandom who are just not saying this stuff, not just going on Twitter and writing it, like stepping up and doing stuff, making change happen. That's the way it's going to work. That it'll only work if people like the fans of both, the shows actually do step up and I believe the young people call it IRL, in real life, actually make things happen.
I think it was probably a month ago when I had to look that up, because that's how out of the loop I am. I was like, I keep seeing this. I got to figure out what it means.
It's also a great opportunity for me to say thank you to the Good Omens fandom, because around this time, we were talking about this briefly before we came onto the live feed, but around this time last year, in the build up to the Homeless World Cup, it was a really tough time. There was a really stressful time going on for me. And because it did coincide with Good Omens coming out and me becoming aware of this fandom happening, starting to grow, that really helped get me through that period of time. And people didn't know that they were doing that for me. But I really want to thank everybody who just poured so much positivity and love and creativity into their responses to Good Omens. And without realizing it, you got me through that period. I'm getting a bit choked up now, but you really helped me through that period of time. And that's why I want to put so much commitment into what is possible through this fandom and fandoms like it, and how much you can, I really believe that you can change people's lives, because you changed my life. And so that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And why doing anything like this that we're doing tonight, and what everybody else is doing. And I know you've got Gish coming up, I think in like 24 hours or something.
Yeah, it's
this is world changing stuff. It really is. And so I really want to show my gratitude for what everybody out there is doing.
Michael, you are a lovely human being. It's really such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for all the good work that you're doing in the world, and for like reaching out to facilitate this partnership. I'm really happy that we're doing this together.
Yeah. I hope it's the first of many, Misha. I really do.
Yeah, me too. Well, that probably is. I think we were supposed to stop a few minutes ago, so maybe we should stop now. But I'm gonna say, you know, if you guys want to support our transatlantic interfandom partnership to help solve the problems of homelessness, or not, we're not going to solve anything. We're just going to help a little bit as we can. Go to Stan's and get one of these shirts, and we love you guys. And Michael, real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, pleasure's all mine. Lots of love.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.